Back once again for the renegade master. 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 Back once again for the renegade master.
Hello my renegades and welcome back. And what are we definitely getting back into? Love Island All Stars. We are now on episode 19 and we all know the decision was made in regards to Toby picking Georgia S. Now we're going to see where that grenade fucking exploded and blew up to. So just before we get into this episode, as I always say, please hit that subscribe button, please hit that notification button so when you know I am on and doing videos. And let's talk about this episode. Whew. There's kind of a bit to talk about. It didn't go as explosive as I thought it was going to go. But all I will say from now, my theory was right. How many episodes back I had a theory that the only reason why Georgia S went for Callum is because Toby wanted to speak to Molly. Georgia S was playing the long game. She was playing a long game. She was waiting Toby out. And now that he's done it and declared himself, yeah, watch Georgia S change her motherfucking tune when it comes to Callum, because she never really wanted Callum in the first place. She really did not want Callum in the first place. How she behaved with Callum, then how she behaved with Tom, to now how she's behaving now this bombshell has dropped, yeah, tells me she was not in it with Callum the way that Callum was in it with her. She was just playing a long waiting game for Toby to realise that he wanted her ass. That's all that came down to, and that's what I'm saying. And also to flip and reverse again, I've never seen so much gaslighting in all my life coming from Georgia S. Like full on gaslighting in all my life. And the fact that she took Arabella's pain and made it her own, like literally owned it for herself, and it wasn't about her at the time. As we carry on with the choosing, you know, Josh chooses Sophie. Josh did a speech and then turns to the others and asks the lads if his speech was decent. And I says, you know what, at that point, I really was trying to like Josh, but I don't like him. I don't like Josh because he honestly believes that he is all that. And the only reason why he's now saying, as he does through the episode, to Sophie that he isn't going to give Joanna the time or day anymore is because Joanna picked Chris. If Joanna had picked him, that guy would not be saying shit. He'd be sitting there with Sophie saying, well, we are open, but I'm still want to get to know you because, you know, you're my gal, this, that, and the other, and da-da-da-da-da. It was because she picked Chris over him. He didn't like it. He lost out. So his backup plan is going to be Sophie, because at the end of the day, Sophie's already locked herself off to this man. Told you it was too soon. Way too soon. So then we have Arabelle stood there. And it's hella embarrassing for Arabelle. The only thing is, I'm going to say, is that, yeah, I'll give props to Toby for doing what he did. Because you know what? If you don't go after what you want in life, you're never going to get it at the end of the day. You can either get a yes, a no, and not a complete not back. At least then you will know. So I'll rate Toby for what he did. The only thing I don't rate him for is the fact that he didn't have a conversation with Arabella first, because he embarrassed that girl in front of everybody. Like, she was locked on to Toby, proper locked on to Toby, to the fact that she went gonna talk to nobody else. She was locked on to this man, because don't forget, they know each other outside of this fucking realm. He was friends with her outside of this fucking realm. So that's put paid to that friendship at the end of the day. I understand Toby had to find out whether this would work with Georgia S, especially when it came to the outside. But my guy, you should have had that discussion with Arabella. You shouldn't have blindsided Arabella. If you wanted to blindside Georgia S and Callum, fine. But when it came to Arabella, because of where you two were, you shouldn't have done that to her, man, because you made her look like a dickhead. Toby did make her look like a dickhead, and that's where I can't rate him, to be fair. So then Callum gets up and goes to speak up in regards to picking Arabella. And of course, Georgia H has to fly herself in there and tell Callum, make it a good one, because at the end of the day, she deserves it. So he did make it a good one, because even Callum is struck as to say, what the fuck just happened here? Like, everybody's like, what the fuck just happened here? Like, really? Because Toby didn't converse with nobody about what he was going to do. He just did it. He went on that limb and said, I'm going to do it. At the end of the day, I know I'm going to be ostracized by people in here if I do follow through with this, but he's going to do it, and that's what he did. So after that was called out, Arabella just walked straight away completely. Really upset, understandably so. Went in the bedroom, was crying her heart out. And it's only when that you see someone like Arabella crying their heart out that you realise she actually did really like Toby. Like, she actually did really rate this guy. She actually did see and plan a future with him outside of this villa. All I can say is, this is Love Island. Expect the unexpected of Love Island, because you can't always expect people are going to keep following through if you're following through with them anyway. You can't expect that. But as I already said, Toby should have had that chat with Arabella, and then in comes Swarms, fucking Georgia S, taking over the whole conversation, yeah, to start blaming herself and saying, oh my God, I didn't know, Arabella, I didn't know at all. I was blindsided just like you was blindsided. And even Arabella had to say to her, this, it's not about you. It's not about you. It's the fact that he's made this decision seemingly out of nowhere, had no conversation with Arabella, so she stood there looking like a fucking dickhead. That's what the issue is. She wouldn't have had an issue with him coming to her and saying to her, look, this is where my mind is at right now. So I don't know which way I'm going to go. At least have given the gal a little bit of a heads up. Do you know what I'm saying? At least have given her a heads up. But for me, I think the decision was made with Toby when he had his final chat with Georgia S. And Georgia S literally laid it down flat that before he came to her to talk to her about Molly and that he wanted to get to know Molly, she was at the point where she was going to shut things down with him completely. And she told him this. She also told him that he will always have a space in her heart. So she basically said and agreed with him that it's always been easy with him in that sense. So coupled with all of that chatter, where do you think his brain is going to go? To be there. But hey ho, I will say no more. I will say no more. So you see Callum is chatting to the rest of them and basically just blasting Toby, like saying, does he have a brain? Doesn't he realise he's hurt people with the shit that he just pulled? And you see Toby having a chat with Kaz and Chris. Now, Kaz and Chris are the only ones that have banded around him at this moment in time. Everybody else is either with Callum or with Arabella. Basically, that's where they are. They see Toby as the shittest person in the universe right now. So he's talking to Kaz and he's talking to Chris, and Kaz basically said to him, at the end of the day, you need to apologise for the timing. He's saying he's not going to apologise for going with what he wanted, and she says, no, you need to apologise for the timing. Toby was saying, well, he'll be ostracised at this point, and I thought, you made your decision, you made your beds. Now you're gonna lay in it. At the end of the day, you've got to lay in it. You got to deal with the chips as they fall, because you hurt two people. That was Callum, you're blindsided, and you blindsided Arabella. At the end of the day, those are the only two people I would say Toby has to speak to. That's the only two people. Toby then decided from that point, I think it was through Kaz and Chris, where they said you need to have a conversation with Callum. And I thought at that point, my guy, don't talk to Callum. Don't talk to Callum, because Callum is hella pissed at this stage. So he has that conversation with Callum. And this is my thing with Callum. Callum is so laid back, like hella laid back. And I'm just like, my guy, do you not show not even an ounce of emotion somewhere? Not even an ounce of anger? I just don't get it. I think for Callum, he was probably more bothered about how Georgia S was then going to react to the whole situation and how she would then play it out with Toby after Toby's done what he's done, because Toby showed his hand now. Toby's completely showed his hand. Toby was telling Callum that the history wasn't stamped out or done between Georgia S and himself. And basically, he was wrestling with the fact that who would he see having more of a relationship on the outside world, and it was with Georgia S. That's where his answer lay. And Callum was right where he said the most person you've hurt is Arabella, and it's true. You hurt that girl where there was no need for you to hurt that girl. But again, this is the villa. This is how these people play this game and play this shit. Callum is saying that there should have been some communication there, and this is my problem. What I've always said, these people don't communicate. The only time they communicate with each other properly is if they're interested in them. That's about it. That is about it. So Toby did confirm to Callum that Georgia S did not know what he was about to do. That as shocked as Arabella was, he's as shocked as Georgia S was. So Callum basically said that he can't justify it, but was telling Toby that the person he needed to speak to was Arabella, which is correct. He needed to have that conversation with Arabella. But I'm thinking he probably should have laid it down a little bit before he spoke to Arabella, because Arabella didn't come to play. Arabella called him all the names under the sun except the child of God. That's what Arabella did. But my thing is, when I had that conversation, Toby was kind of trying to placate her, but wasn't necessarily putting too much into play with their conversation. He was literally trying to say where his head was at that point when he was talking to Arabella and why he chose Georgia S. But Arabella was angry, and all she was going to do was cuss his clot, and cuss his clot shitty. But the biggest fucking puzzle in this is the reaction of Georgia S. That girl loves this shit. She loves it. She loves the fact that Toby literally threw himself out there. As in what she said to Chris. He hasn't stopped caring, and Chris confirmed that no, he hadn't stopped caring for her. He was headstrong for her in that sense. And then Georgia S says, it's nice to know that he always cared. And I said, there you have it. There you have it. Yeah. There you have it. Georgia S was going to entertain this shit from Toby, because as I said from the get-go, Georgia S didn't really want Callum. Georgia S didn't really want Callum. She wanted to try and spite Molly because she believed Molly took Toby. Georgia S was playing it safe with Callum. She was playing the long game for Toby. And now she's got what she wanted. That's why she didn't shut that shit down straight away. That girl was not going to shut that shit down straight away. And it's like what everybody is saying. It's what Callum said to her as well. Why are you so fussed in defending what Toby did, knowing full well he fucked over Arabella and made her upset, but you're so bothered about defending what Toby did? Because Georgia S don't give a shit. Georgia S has got what she wanted at the end of the day, for Toby to freaking fight for her and show her what she show her those emotions. So no, she's not going to shut it down. Reason being why she's not going to shut it down is because it's what she wanted. It's what she wanted. I'm telling you, Georgia S is the biggest gaslighter in this bitch going. Like, seriously, biggest gaslighter when it comes to her being confronted by her own shit and her own actions. She really likes to try and play behind the cuteness. But this time the cuteness did not work for her, and we will get to it. You see Georgia H and Anton having a chat, and Georgia H is now telling Anton that she finds him attractive sexually. And I'm thinking, even the way that Georgia H says it, it's like it's a motherfucking chore. It's like, my girl, you know you don't like this man. You're just doing it because you're literally on the trodden path at the end of the day. And I don't like it when people do that to other people. If you don't necessarily like Anton, don't lead him on, because now you are into lead on territory. That's how I'm seeing it. Georgia H is now into lead on territory for Anton. But Anton is so gung-ho to wanting a woman that he will literally pluck a woman that he knows has no interest in him. This man needs to stop doing that. He did it in his season, and he needs to stop doing that. He needs to find someone who is on par with him and knows his worth in that sense. Because chasing after these women, after they've chased everybody else but you and told you they don't really want to be with you and see you as a friendship kind thing, should tell you something. This girl even said that she had the ick not so many episodes ago, but she didn't know what it was about Anton that was giving her the ick. But there was something about him that was giving her the ick. And now again, back in the same position, because Mitch has gone, who was the only person that actually wanted her in the villa. She started with Josh. Josh quickly delegated away. And then Casey, she never got a jump start with Casey either, because Casey was not going to jump back into that whole spiel with her again. As we said from the other episode, she weeded Casey out and that was it for her. So now the only person who constantly is a consistent body for her is Anton. And she's going to use that, which is going to be hella disgusting because Anton's going to get hurt. But all I'm saying is Anton is putting himself in that position and opening himself wide up to the bullshit that is Georgia H. And we go back to the fucked up duo. And you know who the fucked up duo is? Toby and Georgia S. Yeah. Georgia S is the more fucked up part of that duo. Like, let's just put that out there. So they're talking at the fire pit, and someone tell me why Georgia S keeps why is this girl laughing her head off? Like, seriously? And she has to turn her back to the rest of the people because it may look a little bit fucking spiteful if she turns around and all they see is her laughing. Because I told you, I'm going to tell you again, she likes this shit. She revels in this because she is center of attention, and that's where she loves to be. She loves to be in a male gaze. She loves to have that male gaze, and she loves to be the center of attention in that male gaze. And Toby's given her what she wanted, so she couldn't keep a straight face. She's trying to say she laughs when she gets nervous. Nah, my girl, you were too busy loving that. You were loving the whole of that. But you know you can't show it to the rest of the villa right now. So as they're talking, Arabella and Callum are talking, and Arabella's basically saying that she believes that it was a strategic move for Toby to do what he did, because she's believing that it's because Callum and Georgia S came second in the popularity vote. No, don't think of it now. It's not that at all. It is not that at all. Georgia S was waiting Toby out. That's how I'm seeing it. It's not because they were second in the popularity contest at the moment. Georgia S says she's feeling overwhelmed, and Georgia S told Toby about the fact that Callum has said to her after the recoupling that he was about to close things off with her completely. And Toby explained to her that he did what he did purely of how he felt. So if she rejected him, if she says she's happy with Callum and that's what she wants to do, then that's fine. That should have been the prime opportunity for Georgia S to say, you know what, I love you, Toby, but I think we've had our chance in here, and I really am gravitating towards Callum, and I want to see how things go with me and him, because I can see that happening on the outside. Do you think she sat there and said that? No, Georgia S ain't gonna do that. Oh, do we all know who Georgia S is? Georgia S ain't not gonna do that. She's been playing in Callum's face for the motherfucking longest. Oh, she weren't going to do what was sensible. Even though Toby gave her an out and knew that it would hurt him, she was not going to do that, because Toby always came first in Georgia S's eyes. Georgia S says in reply that with Toby it would be a risk, but with Callum it would be easy, and she wanted to sit on it for a day or two. My girl, you ain't going nowhere. You know you ain't going nowhere at the end of the day, because if you really were into Callum the way that you say that you were into Callum, especially when you were saying it to his face, you wouldn't have given Toby the time of day. You necessarily wouldn't. And I agree with Callum, and I agree with Arabella. If you were really into that man the way you said you were into that man, yeah, you would have shut that shit down with Toby. You wouldn't even have shown him that there would have been a door opened in any way, shape or form. But she can't do that because she really does want Toby. That's how I'm seeing it. She can't do it because she wants Toby. So at the moment, Georgia S is lying to herself and then lying to others to try and save face. So as you see, the chatter of the night is starting to bubble up around the villa, and you're starting to see how other people are not trusting the motives of Georgia S, because Callum is point blank saying if it was him, he would have shut that shit down straight away. And I said she ain't going to, because she likes this. She likes being the centre of attention for the male gaze. She loves this. Georgia S is fucking reveling in this. She loves it. She does. She really does. And her actions are showing exactly what her character is like. Arabella and Callum were watching Toby and Georgia S hard when they came into the bedroom, because Georgia S took herself over to Callum first and gave him a hug. Yeah, gave him a hug. She didn't have to do that, but she did. Yeah, then went over to Toby and literally straight away they're looking at each other, facing each other, and then they're hugging each other. Now you tell me the answer of the action give you. Georgia S don't give a shit. She's trying to be cutesy with Callum and try and keep him in tow, yeah, just in case, I think as a placeholder now, just in case things don't pan out with Toby. That's what she's doing. That's what she's doing now. And as Callum already said, he ain't being a placeholder for nobody. But yes, Callum and Arabella were watching them hard in the bedroom that night. It comes to the daytime and Toby is chatting to Chris, and he said that he does realise that, you know, he hurt Arabella the most. He really does. Arabella is chatting in regards to the fact that she felt that he had a level of respect for her because they were friends on the outside as well. And she thought that he would be able to at least come to her and say what's up at any given time. But the fact that he didn't do that and he did what he did, like literally hurt Arabella, hurt her to her core. And Kaz asked Georgia S if she was shocked, and she said yes. Georgia S is basically saying that she was baffled and that she's worried now because Callum wouldn't even look at her this morning, and she was saying it wasn't her fault. Oh, give her that. It wasn't necessarily her fault, but it's your behaviours afterwards that Callum is calling into question, my love. He understands you were not aware of what was going to happen, but when you became aware of it, you did nothing else but literally jump on Toby. You didn't really speak to Callum except to give him a hug that night. And then you're in the bed and Callum and Arabella were watching you both hard and you were hugging that dude. So yeah, it's your actions afterwards that is pulling into question for Callum at the end of the day. And a text comes in and basically it's the girls 18 and they're having an afternoon of cocktails and conversations. And I'm thinking that conversation is not going to end well for Georgia S, because I'm telling you, she's going to be put on the hot seat. And she's going to be put on the hot seat by Arabella. Make no mistake about it. Arabella is gunning for Georgia S right now. She's done her shit with Toby, but this time she's got her sights locked on Georgia S to say, okay, Toby's fucked me about, but you, my girl, are not fucking Callum about in this bitch. And I'm going to make sure that you don't. So as they've gone out there having their chats, Arabella is basically saying that she's still in shock, and if Georgia S speaks up and says, yeah, you and me both. And everyone's saying it's a difficult one because now the girls won't trust him. Kaz will still trust him because at the end of the day, he's friends with Kaz and he's friends with Chris. At the end of the day, that's not going to change for Kaz, but everybody else is saying that they're not going to be able to trust him. I'm just like, it is what it is. At the end of the day, this is the villa. This is what happens, so it's to be expected. So basically Arabella is explaining the fact that her and Toby had a friendship on the outside, so she was absolutely and utterly blindsided by this shit, and Molly did pipe up at that point. And I said, no, dude, because none of you communicate in this fucking place. It's like you communicate on the outside, but then as soon as you get in the villa, none of you fucking talk to each other. Like, seriously, don't. And think the shit that you're pulling in there is going to equate to things being okay once you get out. No, it fucking isn't. Just because you're in there and you pull the shit that you pull, if you pulled that shit on the outside, either dude probably would stop talking to you or dude would punch you in your trap. That's it, pure and simple. You'd be fighting. You'd be scrapping. At the end of the day, Georgia S then said that she does rate Toby for being upfront. But Arabella then tells Georgia S, but actually Callum is saying that you didn't shut that shit down. So then Georgia S starts to get on her fucking soapbox and say, no, I couldn't turn my back on what he did. That would just be cruel. So basically Arabella point blank asked her, are you entertaining it then with Toby? And she says, I never said I'm entertaining it yet. Yet was the key word. And like them questions gonna come thick and fast. And this is why I'm saying Georgia S can't talk her way out of this one now. She cannot talk her way out of this one at all now, because her actions are gonna speak louder than her words. I've never known someone to be so gaslighty in all my life, because that's what Georgia S does, that completely. And she thinks being cute and being all nice and trying to come out coquettishly, yeah, it's going to work for her. But not this time. It ain't going to work for her, and she's gonna have a rude awakening. You see some of the lads back in the villa having a chat, because Toby and Chris are off by themselves on the terrace. All the other lads are literally having a chat amongst themselves. I don't think Callum's a part of that group either, because they're talking about the situation at hand. So the lads are talking about how Georgia S came into the room, gave Callum a hug, and then got into bed with Toby. This is Tom who's saying this, and literally, boom, beamed, smiled straight into Toby's face. And Chris is basically saying that, you know, actions speak louder than words in that scenario. I will say to Chris that he had his boys back. He did have his boys back, because at the end of the day, yous are all chatting this scenario, chatting about Toby, but Toby's not there to answer for himself. So it's not fair for you to talk behind this man's back, but then won't say anything to his face. Key point is Anton, Casey, and I think Callum was in the room. They're there checkering against Toby, yeah, saying, oh, we all were chatting like by the pool. This is, I think, after the girls have come back from their little, you know, tea party. We were all chatting by the pool, but the one person who wasn't there to be able to answer to anything, this case is saying it to Anton, was Toby, even though the chat was all about him. And they were like, yeah, we know, he wasn't able to say anything. And then as soon as Toby walks into the room, two twos, them two go quiet, two twos, them two shut their mouth. And I'm like, okay then, if you really want Toby to know what you said so he can have a chance to reply back, then say it with your chest. Say what the fuck you were saying in the room in front of his face. Otherwise, just let it go and shut the fuck up. Is what I'm saying. Let it go and shut up if you're not prepared to literally say what the fuck you're saying in front of the person that you're talking about. That's all I'm saying, because I find it quite spineless that you can chat this man when he's not sitting with yours, chat this man again when he's not in the room with yours, but as soon as he walks into the room, you go silent. Like fucking Sagebrush could run right through that room, how silent that room went. See through that when Chris and Toby was having their conversation, and basically Chris had told him in a sense what the lads were saying, and Chris being the voice of reason and defending Toby at that point at the end of the day. So he did say to Toby that the lads did have fair points, but asking if Georgia S had put any flames into it, and Toby did say she didn't know. But Chris is saying deep down she wanted it, and yeah, I think she did. Deep down, Georgia S wanted this from Toby, like literally wanted this. She might not have been fully instrumental. She had a part responsibility because of the chat that her and Toby had right before the recouplings happened. Yeah, which made him think that there's still unfinished stuff, and the feelings that he felt between him and Georgia S, which made him then go on to make the decision that he made. So she had a like I would say like 5-10% like interest in that sense, where she put herself into it. But everything else was all Toby. But after that, now it becomes Georgia S and what she's gonna do and the actions she's gonna take. What top thing is though is when the girls came back from their date and everybody sat down by the fire pit. Not everybody was there. So they said, oh, well, where's the rest of the lads? Which was Chris and Toby. Chris and Toby comes walking back in, and my God, you could cut the tension with a knife. Everybody was quiet, and the looks Arabella was giving Toby, my guy, if she could throw daggers from her eyes, you'd be dead right now. You'd be dead where you were walking. And Josh basically piped up, and I agreed with Josh that everybody's going to have to agree and disagree. At the end of the day, they're all adults and they're enclosed in a space, and they're going to have to try and get along some way, somehow. I'm just like, yeah. Whew. All in a day's work, eh? All in a day's work for Georgia S and Toby. So the first thing first is the night time, yeah. My first reaction for Georgia S would be go and have a chat with Callum, talk to Callum, but no, she doesn't do that. She talks to Toby first, and is literally having a bitch and a moan fest with Toby in terms of, I've only known him for a week. How are you gonna close yourself off to me? I'm not thinking that far ahead. This is in regards to her with Callum. This is in regards to Callum speaking to her about where they were, because don't forget, Georgia S has been giving the spiel to Callum throughout the time that they've been together, and making it seem as though like me and you are together in this beach at the end of the day. That's how she's saying, making it seem. She'd also told Callum that things between her and Toby were done. That's how she made it for Callum. So Callum decided he's going to put himself into Georgia S because he isn't interested in getting to know anybody else. Because at the end of the day, for Callum, laid back bitch that he is, yeah, actually does seem to want to get to know someone, and actually does seem to want to have a relationship with someone. Wrong person with Georgia S though. Like serious wrong person with Georgia S. Georgia S then goes and pulls Callum. How do we all think that bloody conversation went? Because it didn't go the way that Georgia S was expecting it to go, because the first words out of her mouth was she'd missed him. And I was like, and he was like, I'm so glad you said that. But then I was like, my girl, you just stood up there fucking clarting this man's name out to Toby. Like seriously clarting this man's name out to Toby, and complaining about the fact that you'd only been together for a week. But yeah, he was thinking that you were getting to a point of locking off with each other. Turned around and said to her, at the end of the day, he expected her to shut that shit down and say, you know, thank you for picking me, but it's a no thank you, because my sights are set on this person. But she did neither of that. She then starts, as I said already within this episode, to argue with Callum in regards to defending Toby and rating him for what he did, because it takes a lot for a person to get up and do what he did and showed what he did. Also forgetting about the aspect of within what he did, he really hurt Arabella. And Callum was reminding her of that fact, that the fact that he fucked over someone in order to do what he did, and that person got really hurt by it. Did Georgia S give a shit? No, she didn't. She continued to defend Toby, her main, because that's what I'm going to say, it's her main. She was trash. Like, I'm sorry, Georgia S is trash. She really is. And Callum basically told her point blank that he was leaving her to figure her shit out. He weren't dealing with it no more. He was leaving her to figure her shit out, because she literally tried to sit there and gaslight that man. Literally tried to gaslight that man and say the stuff, wasn't necessarily listening to what he was saying and how he was saying it. Just wanted to try and get her point across and why she was in the right and Callum was in the wrong. It's like, you know what? I'm glad. You need to leave her to it. Make her bed. Make her lay in it. This play now is down to Georgia S, and all Callum has to do now is sit back and watch. That's all he can do, because he told her he ain't waiting for her. Don't expect him to be the safe position for you. He ain't waiting for you. So then he kind of walks off, yeah, and she's sitting there smirking, like full on smirking. I'm like, I really don't like this girl. I really don't like her. I really don't like her. I'm just like, and then it shuts off to the next episode where you see the PDA awards, and all I'm saying to myself is, please, the producing gods that be, make them put in the shit that Georgia S has been getting up with Tom in there. Please make them put that in, because you know what? Callum gave her a bly with that. Callum gave her the blow with that, and believed the shit that came out of her mouth. She managed to fucking gaslight the fuck out of him to the point that he followed what she wanted. Now this time, now they're on the outs, he's going to be able to see exactly the type of person that Georgia S is. Like seriously. Anyway, my renegades, that is where I'm going to leave it. That's where the episode ended, and I'll be back soon enough on your screens with the next episode, which will be tomorrow, because the next one is Sundays, because today's is just the unseen bits, which we don't necessarily talk about because we don't have to. But as I always say, please hit that subscribe button, please hit that notification button so when you know I am on and doing videos, and I'll be back again soon. Peace out.